Good morning. Welcome to Trust Life with Louise Hay. October 5th. This one you'll enjoy, Mom. My mom's sitting right behind me here. She's 90. I've always admired my mother because she's always learning and growing. She came to stay with us. She lives actually in Nelson, BC, and my brother lives with her. And together they are navigating the third trimester of her existence. And that's her home. And she has a beautiful home, and she's got plants all around her. She's created a space that's always alive and growing. And she has these beautiful windows that she looks out of. And she's got mountains where she lives, and sometimes she even has bears in her yard, and there's wild turkeys. And so that's her home. And right now she's been displaced. And it's been difficult for her. There's been a few times she said to me, "I'm homesick." She said, even though she loves me, she's not in the place that she's created for herself. And as she's talked about being homesick, and I've watched her, and she at home, she's 90 and she's experiencing macular degeneration, and so her eyesight is changing. But she, for the last, I don't know how many years, Mom, for Days for Girls?
8.
For the last 8 years, she's sewn for an organization called Days for Girls. And it creates menstrual sanitary supplies that are washable for girls in third world countries. Because in those third world countries, when they get their period and they do not have something to catch it, they must stay home because they have no way of keeping themselves clean, and they can't go to school. And when they miss a certain number of days of school, they are then expelled from school. Breaks my heart. Mm-hmm. And so if they don't have a way to manage this natural life-giving process that is so completely misunderstood in their area, they cannot progress intellectually. And so there's an organization called Days for Girls that makes these, and they have a very set protocol for how these kits get put together, and they get sent to countries all over the world. Well, Mom has sewn for Days for Girls for 8 years. And as her eyesight is declining, she can only sew certain things within these packages because some of the processes are a little bit too finicky for the sight that she's got. But as she said to me, "I'm homesick," and I could see her sitting and looking out the window, and we get big winds here and those give her headaches. As I could see her looking out the window, she just said, "I need something to do." And I brought out my sewing machine, and she made herself a skirt. And now my sewing machine's sitting on the table with my serger, and that's going to stay there until Mom goes home again. Because she wants some purpose. And so we've acquired some materials for her that she can make the pads for Days for Girls. And now she's going to get back to sewing at 90 years old with failing eyesight. So this one I dedicate to my dear mother. She says, "I'm never too old to learn and grow. Never make the mistake of thinking that you're too old for anything. My own life didn't begin to have meaning until I was in my late 40s when I started teaching. At age 50, I started my publishing company on a very small scale. At 55, I ventured into the world of computers, taking my first classes and overcoming my fear of them. At 60, I started my first garden and have become an avid organic gardener who grows her own food. At 70, I enrolled in a children's art class. A few years later, I graduated to an adult art classes and have started to sell my paintings." This is all Louise Hay. "Recently, I decided to stretch myself in areas that scared me, and I took up ballroom dancing. Now I'm taking several classes a week, and I'm fulfilling my childhood dream of learning to dance. I also took up yoga, and my body is making positive changes. I love to learn things I haven't experienced. Who knows what I'll do in the future? What I do know is that I'll be doing my affirmations and expressing new creativity until the day that I leave this planet." I was riding a bus one day. It was about 10 years ago. I lived in Calgary. No, it was more than 10 years ago because I lived in Calgary. I was coming down from Calgary on the bus to run a race, one of my ultra marathons. And I sat by, the bus trip was about 3 hours, and I wish I had started talking to this lady before. Because I sat beside her for 2 hours before discovering who she really was, and then I only had an hour left to really delve into her fantastic life. But as I sat there and just kind of observed her, she was an older lady. She was beautifully dressed. She wasn't richly dressed, but she was beautifully dressed. Her nails were beautifully manicured. Her hair was nicely coiffed. She wore lovely makeup. And as we stopped in Fort Macleod for a little bathroom break, and she climbed back onto the bus and sat down, she says, "Oh, these 90-year-old knees are not what they used to be." And I said, 90? And then I started talking to her because she didn't look a day over 70. And at that point, I was about 45. And so she was ancient to me. But then when I discovered she was 90, I started picking her brain. And she started telling me about her life and how she was a secretary in a medical profession, and she wanted to progress within that profession, but to be able to progress to the next levels of secretary, she had to go back to school. And so at 45, she went back to school to take the next level, and then she reached the level of progression that she could in that, and then she had to return to school again. So again, I think at about 55, she returned to school again so that she could get that next level. And so she was telling me some of these things about her life, how she kept returning to learning. And I think she was over 90. She giggled and she put her hand on her lip and she goes, "And next week I'm starting a Spanish class." And I thought, wow, that was phenomenal. And next week I'm starting a Spanish class. And here she was in her 90s going, what can I learn next? What can I learn next? And I've got that legacy from my mother. Just going to tip this over here right there. There's Joni, who turned 90 this year and wanted to continue to sew for Days for Girls. She's always reading something. She's always doing Sudoku to keep her brain active. She's always independent. We're never too old to learn, because whatever we learn here, we take with us into the next realm, whatever you believe that to be. But our knowledge and our wisdom and our compassion and our kindness that we gain here travels with us. I firmly believe that. So, what are you learning next? What am I learning next? I'm preparing right now, actually. As I finish this off, I'm going to be finishing the finishing touches on a PowerPoint that I will be presenting this weekend called Chi Talk. And my Chi Talk it's an hour-long presentation in Spring Forest Qigong. And my Chi Talk will be about how our Chi fields, that energy field that we have, connects with animals, and how we can learn and grow and heal through our connections with our Chi fields to animals, specifically in this particular talk, and everything in the universe. I am connected to everything. My clothing, my crystals here, the metal, the bones, the earth, my beautiful lamp that comes from Margie, that all of these Chi fields, all these energies are all interconnected. We are together. I can't function without you. You can't function without me. We are one. We are one. Step into that oneness. I love you. Namaste.